Hello and welcome back to another CTF walkthrough. Today we're going to be doing Puppy from HackTheBox. And to be honest, this machine is quite the doozy. This was one of the first medium Active Directory machines that I've solved, and it gave me quite the trouble, especially at the end with the privilege escalation. But we're going to have to get through the rest of the steps to get there, so let's jump right into it. As you can see, we start with credentials. We start with Levi.James and King of Akron 2025. And we're going to put this into a file called creds.txt. And we're going to continue to iterate and add on to this file as we go throughout the box. We also have an IP of 10.10.1170 that we can start an Nmap scan on. So I'm going to do -T4 to as a timing thing. So -T4 is going to say, hey, we want to scan a little bit more aggressively. In return, we're going to scan faster. So more aggressive, get our scan back a little faster. -A is going to encompass -SC for enumerating default scripts, SV for enumerating versions, and then -O for operating system information. Though from the box description, we already know it's Windows because it's Active Directory, but I just like to use -A anyway. And obviously our IP of 10.10.1170, and we're going to output that into an nmap.txt file. And while that runs, we can actually run enumeration on another screen here. So I'm going to create a new tab, and I'll do this one. I'll just say like nmap. Oh, and I usually do split screen, but I think for videos, I'm going to try doing new tabs just to keep things organized. I'll say Levi enumeration. And we will grab these credentials. And we can just start running default enumeration as we would with netexec. And I love netexec personally. It's one of my favorite tools for Active Directory, and for good reason. It can do a lot of powerful things, especially when it comes to enumeration. So let's just do --shares to start. And status user session deleted. That's interesting. Maybe we try again. Okay. That's quite bizarre. I've never seen that before, to be honest. Maybe we need to add our IP to Etsy hosts. That usually solves things. So sudo nano Etsy hosts will add. So the name is DC, the domain is puppy.htb. Cali. I got HackTheBox 10.10.1170 with dc.puppy.htb, puppy.htb, and then I also like to add just the host name of the DC here. I saw Ipsec do it in one of his videos, so I'm like, well, I've got to start doing that now. So that's the reason why I do that, and it also helps with obviously host name resolution or something like that. But let's just see if we normally authenticate without even trying to list the shares, and I wonder if it's even up. It's having trouble. So 10.10.1170 is up. User, oh, I didn't do password here. Duh. How silly of me. Now we should be able to see. There we go. I was very confused here. And we see we actually have read access on the dev folder. And to be honest, this actually isn't intended. I'm going to give the machine a quick restart just to make sure all permissions and things are restarted, because obviously I've done this box before, and you are not supposed to have read access on the dev folder from the start. So I'm going to give the machine a quick restart, and then I will be right back. Alrighty, the machine has reset, and we're getting pings back. We run the same command, and we see, as intended, levi.james does not actually have read permission on the dev share, and we just have read permission on the default shares as expected. So we can go back to our Nmap scan really quick just to see if there's anything that stands out, and there really isn't. There's a lot of stuff in RPC bind here, but other than that, it is just the default the default Active Directory ports. WinRM is open here, so that's how we're going to remotely access the box later. But yeah, other than that, nothing crazy here. So going back to enumeration, we see we don't have anything in shares, so let's get a users list. I usually do shares, users, and then I go into LDAP stuff. So we have a users list here. I'm going to copy all of this. Actually, I'm going to leave out the administrator, KRGPT, and KRBTGT, and the guest account. I don't think those are very useful for password spraying purposes. or having a users list. So nano users.text, paste it in, and I'm going to awk, what column is that? 5. So awk print the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th column on users.text. Oops. And then we just get this. Users.text. I delete it all, paste it all. And it's probably not the most efficient way. I should probably just be piping this into a new file, but whatever. That's okay. We have our updated users list. That's all that I care about. Now we're going to do some bloodhound enumeration. So I'll do ldap -- bloodhound, and then we're going to do DNS TCP, and we're going to specify the DNS server, which in this case is our domain controller, and then we're going to collect all. And see it's running, which is great. And then on my second desktop here, I've actually already started Bloodhound. So sudo bloodhound CLI up. That's going to start Bloodhound, and we can navigate it at localhost 8080. And we have no data available, so we're going to have to go to the administration file ingest page. And then we see that netexec timed out, which is not good. I'm going to run this again just to double check, make sure we're getting everything. I would hate to have it time out in the middle of retrieving all of this information and something's missing. There we go. It looks like it did not time out this time. So I'm going to copy this file over to our current directory. So we have the zip file, and we can full screen Bloodhound, zoom in a little bit, upload files. We're going to go to HackTheBox videos. If it loads. We're being very slow today. It's okay. Videos, puppy, and then our zip file from the domain controller, upload that, and it's going to ingest for a little bit. And while that's ingesting, let's see, what else can we do? We can do some other bloodhound enumeration. Something I do like to check for just super quickly is curb roasting. So curb roasting service hash.text. And we see, hey, nothing returned. That and asrep roasting. Asrep roasting. These are both, or I think it's just asrep roast. Both of these netexec modules are a super quick win. So if something does come back, it's just a quick win. If nothing comes back, then hey, by the time it's done, Bloodhound's already ingested our file. So we can go and explore. So we're gonna go to levi.james, which is the account we already have compromised. Right click, add to owned. And then we're gonna scroll down and click outbound object controls, which is really the cream of the crop of Bloodhound, identifying, hey, our user is a member of the HR group, and the HR group has GenericWrite over developers. And if you don't know what this means, Bloodhound makes it really easy. You can click on the edge here, so the GenericWrite edge. Click on general. So we pretty much have the ability to write to any non-protected attribute on developers at puppy.htb, including the members. So we can add ourselves to the developers group. And this matters because if we go back here and list out our shares again, up a few shares, this dev share that we don't have read access to, we will have read access to if we're part of the developers group. So let's do that really quickly. We can use pass the hash net. You can use RPC. I like to use bloody AD for all of this. So I'm going to change this to just Levi. So I like to use bloody AD. And then I believe it's a similar syntax, just like this. And then we have to add DCIP. And I'm also going to add --host dc.puppy.htb. And then I'm not sure after this. Let's see. We want to add -h. This is kind of how I never really remember the syntax, so I have to go through all this. We have to add a group member, and then one more time. So we're going to add a group member to the developers group, right? Is that what's it? Yeah, developers. And we're going to add levi.james to that group. And we spelled developers wrong. Developers. and we've added Levi.James to the developers group. Awesome. So now when we run that command, we should see we now have read access to the developers group. So fantastic. What can we do with that? We're going to use SMB client to log in to this share and see what is kicking. The dev share dash capital U for SMB client and Levi James and then a percent symbol instead of dash P. I don't know why SMB client likes to be quirky like that, but that's just how it is. And we get successfully logged in. PWD shows us we're in the dev folder. We do ls, and we see one really interesting thing off the rip. We see a KeyPass. So KDBX is just like a KeyPass, which is just like a password manager. So we have a recovery file, so we can download that, cd into projects, see if there's anything here, and there's not. So we see obviously KeyPass XC, and then the corresponding recovery file. This is the application itself. And this project folder is separate, but there's nothing here. So nothing really else to check out in that SMB share. We can go back and we now have the recovery folder or the recovery file rather. If we just try to natively open this, and keep in mind, Kali Linux actually doesn't come installed with KeyPass XC. So you're going to have to download this yourself. You can actually do that by sudo apt install KeyPass XC, I think. And yeah, so sudo apt install KeyPass XC, and you can install this application. And then if you use the open command, it'll automatically open KeyPass XC for you. But when we do that, we see that we are prompted with a password, right? This is password protected. And this is similar to like a PDF, an Excel file, like an SSH key that's protected. All these are password protected, but what can we do with password protected files? We can try to crack that password. And to do that, we usually use the toJohn functionality. So toJohn, like toJohn. There's a lot of toJohn functionalities like SSH to John. There's PDF to John, right? There's a ton of toJohn functionalities, including KeyPass to John. So KeyPass to John, dash K is going to be recovery, and then we're going to do that for john.txt. And maybe it's not K, it's just like this. But we actually get an error, right? We get recovery.kbdx file version is not supported. So let's open Firefox and let's see what that's all about. I'm just going to Google that error. And there's a few things here that I want to open. We get this GitHub page, GitHub problem page. That's not really useful, but this blog by Tom O'Neill, shout out Tom. He does a great job of looking through like why this happens and suggesting alternatives. And if we scroll all the way down, so there's 3 references here. He actually, so PyKeyPass is the pip library that allows you to sort of interact with the KeyPass database. And then he also wrote I don't know if this is his tool or someone else's, but this brutal KeyPass is just a brute force tool to try and crack the KeyPass password. So it's very similar to John in that sense, but it's just a different tool. So yep, brute forcing KeyPass databases written in Python. Very simple. So we're gonna click into this. We can just copy the code, nano brute force KeyPass.py, paste the code, and then Python 3 VF. And I should already have, okay, I don't. So I'm going to go into my virtual environment. So Python 3, if you don't have a virtual environment, which looks like this, so you can do source, my virtual environment is just under venv, like this, bin activate, and you get this little .venv virtual environment thing. Now if I run it, it should work, but this is what Kali is sort of bringing the standard to now. You should run all of your Python files that have dependencies from a virtual environment so it doesn't break your machine. So to create one of these virtual environments, you do Python 3-m, then you name it, and then you put a location. So I think it's like that is the syntax. That's how you create a virtual environment. And then to go into that virtual environment, you do source like this. So that is sort of my understanding and the bare bone basics of what a virtual environment is. And when you do this and you try to run it, it's not going to magically work. You actually have to do pip install. So inside of your virtual environment, pip installing KeyPass like this. And obviously I already have it. And then after you have it installed, you should be able to run the script. So now to the fun part, running the script. So we're going to -d. So the database that we're trying to crack is recovery.kdbx. And the word list we're going to use is, oops, not a capital W, user share wordless rock you. And we will let that run. So a little bit of a workaround to the KeyPass to John problem, but thankfully, Tom here, thank you, Tom, came up with a solution and a nice document. So InfoSec write-ups, this is a fantastic Medium user, obviously 70,000 followers. Highly recommend checking out this article, and I'll leave it below in the description as well. But on the left-hand side of the screen, you see it successfully has cracked. So, or successfully brute forced rather. So we have successfully brute forced the recovery password, and we find out it is Liverpool. So now we can open this recovery.kbdx file again. And when we're prompted, we will paste in the Liverpool password, and there we go. We now have 5 entries for 5 different users. We've got adam.silver, and I guess I should split screen this a little bit. So I'll do nano creds.text, and we will add some users. So adam.silver, and his password is HJKL2025. Okay. Our next user is going to be Anthony Edwards, but I think a key actually goes under a different user. So if I go back here and cat users.text. Yeah, let's see who all we have here. So we have Anthony Edwards, who goes under ant.edwards, Jamie Williams, okay, Adam Silver, and then Samuel Blake and Steve Tucker aren't on the users list, so I'm not going to record them as much, but I will add these users to my credential file. Oops, I go to Levi and like this. Okay, Ant Edwards. We have here Antman 2025. Noticing a pattern with these passwords. Adam Silver is that first user we got. And then Jamie Williams. Another 2025 password. Nice. Like this. Okay. So now we have our creds.txt. And I'm also going to add a passwords.txt file. Because I want to spray these passwords, right? I'm going to awk print the third column of passwords.txt, copy, nano passwords.txt, paste, and then we're also going to add these other 2 entries here. I love you 2025 and Steve 2025. If you're watching this video in 2025, I love you. Save that, and now we have our passwords file and our users file. So we can close the out of KeyPass, make this a little bigger, and now what we can do is we can use netexec to spray these credentials. So we're going to pass in our users file, pass in our passwords file, and do continue on success. And we will let netexec run. So this is what this is going to do is it's pretty much just going to, I think I have to deactivate actually, deactivate. So whenever you're in your virtual environment and tools and commands don't work, just go out of the virtual environment because sometimes it will just cause problems. So what this is going to do is just confirm what credentials we have working and what credentials here don't. And we see we only get 2 matches. So we have the first one, levi.james, kin of Akron, and then we have this ant.edwards and antman 2025. The other passwords are either expired or they just don't work. So, sorry, I had to take a little water break there. Make sure you guys are staying hydrated. So we now have another match. If we use this, we can go similar concept, -u ant edwards, -p antman 2025. list out the shares, and sort of re-enumerate this cycle again. See if ant has any additional shares. And it looks like we timed out. Let's try again. And we do have write access on the dev share, but I'm not sure if that's going to be particularly valuable as of now. We can go back here and search up ant.edwards. We can do the same process as we did with Levi, right click, add to owned, scroll down and see outbound object controls. And we see we do have one. And we see that ant.edwards is a member of the senior developers group, and the senior developers group has GenericAll, which is essentially just every single permission, onto adam.silver. So this is just another lateral movement attack that we can do to compromise another user. If you want to learn more about GenericAll, there's pretty much Bloodhound goes into detail about every attack you can do. For us, we're just going to force change the password. It's the easiest, so let's do that. Yes, this is no longer Levi. We can I don't know how to organize my tabs. I've never done these tabs before. Let's just do attacks. AD attacks. How do you guys organize? Question for the crowd here. If you guys use the tab on the terminal, so I usually do like split screen like this. Like this is usually how I do it. But if you use the tabs, how do you name them? How do you organize them? I'd love to hear your thoughts about what works for you here. But anywho, we're going to use bloody AD again. And I'll see if I can find that same command I used earlier. Nice. It's going to be pretty much the exact same thing. Same domain controller IP, same host. The only thing different is going to be the user and the password. We're going to use ant.edwards instead of levi.james. And instead of adding a group member, we're actually going to be setting a password. So set password, I think it's the command. Yep, set password. Target is going to be adam.silver. And the new password, we could do password123 exclamation mark. And we see the password has changed successfully, so we can run netexec and authenticate as adam.silver. Password123. And, well, what's happening here? It actually looks like the account is disabled. So while we can change the password of this account, we actually can't remotely log into it because it's disabled. So how do we solve that problem? How do we enable the account? And there's a couple things we can do, but the way that I did it was through LDAP search and LDAP modify, which both come pre-installed in Kali. So we're gonna do LDAP search, and we're gonna do a search as ant.edwards. So we can do ant.edwards, and I don't know why the LDAP search is like the syntax doesn't really make sense to me. Capital D for username dash W, like W for password. That doesn't really make sense to me, but whatever. Whoever made this tool is a lot smarter than me, so I will just roll with it. Then we're gonna do LDAP, then our domain controller 10.10.1170 dash B, and we're gonna provide the DC is puppy, and then DC again is HTB. Then we're actually gonna filter for the SAM account name to be adam.silver. So we want to look at adam.silver and see what's going on here. Hopefully I got all of that right, and I did not. What did I do wrong? Let's see. LDAP 10.10.1170, DC is puppy, HTB, SAM account name is equal to adam.silver. Maybe I have to add the entire invalid credential. Maybe I have to add the entire domain here. Let's try that. And there we go. That was the problem. So you have to add the entire domain when authenticating with LDAP search, which makes sense. So looking at Adam, if we scroll down, we can see the user account control, and this is sort of what determines what the account is from a like process level, I guess. So if you look up this, we can do that really quickly. Go to Firefox here, user account control, attribute and flags. We see that that big number is disabled and password doesn't expire. So right, that's what it was, 66050. Yep. So we see that our account, obviously, as we know, is disabled and the password doesn't expire. What we want to change it to is we want to change it to just a normal account. So we want to change this to a 512 value. And again, we can do that through ldapmodify, but we have to make an lfif file, which is ldap, or an ldif file rather. And I forget the ldap data integration file or something like that, ldif. I'm not exactly sure what it stands for, but we're going to make a modify.ldif file. And actually, I am going to do a split screen for this because I need both sides of information. Nano modify.ldif. And we need a few things here. So the first thing we're going to need is the dn. We're just going to copy this line, paste it just like that. And then we're going to do a change type. So how are we going to change this? How are we going to change the LDAP information? And we're going to modify it. And what are we going to modify? Well, we're going to replace the user account control. So that's sort of the exact same, this exact same line that we saw earlier. User, where was it? User account control. We're just replacing this. And what are we replacing it with? Well, we're going to replace user account control. Instead of 66050, we're going to change it to 512, just like that. So Control S, Control X, and we can close out of that. Make this bigger for you guys. Cat out, modify. So then that looks good to me. And now we can use ldapmodify. And I'll just do a quick -h, just as a quick breeze through for people who are curious. So this is what it looks like. -x for simple authentication. The bind dn is going to be the same thing as before, actually. So let's just scroll up, copy this. It's going to be the exact same thing. So just like this. And instead of sort of filtering and searching, we're actually going to modify. So we're going to pass in our file. So I believe -f should be here somewhere. Yep, we're going to read operations from the modify.elfdiff file that we just did. So we're going to click enter, and no error is usually a good sign. So we are successfully modifying the entry for Adam.Silver. So now our account is enabled. Let's see if we now authenticate with that password. And we successfully authenticate. The account is no longer disabled, and we can list out shares. So let's go into Bloodhound. Now that we have compromised that user, we can right click, add to owned, and we've successfully compromised another user. Now, Adam doesn't have any outbound object controls, so the next thing I look at is member of, and we see he's a part of the developers, he's a part of the domain users, but he's also part of the remote management users. So what this means is just WinRM. So we can do Evil-winrm, and actually I'm going to go back here and change this to Evil-winrm. I'm starting to see the organization factor. Just like this, I'll copy that stuff. Evil-winrm-i. Then we'll paste in the IP, the user, and the password. Click enter. And if everything goes right, we have successfully remoted in as Adam.Silver. We can go to his desktop, and this is where you would grab the user.txt flag. So now the first thing I'm going to look at is who am I-priv. Or I guess we do who am I-all. So this is going to show SID. It's going to show what groups I'm in. So obviously we are in the remote management users. We're in the user, like the normal users. It's also going to show privileges. So this is one that is pretty common in CTFs and even in the real world, is you will see some interesting privileges here, but none of these are actually that bad. We can't really do anything with these. So I'm gonna go out to the C drive and look for any files here. And we do see two things off the rip. The first thing is storage reports. And the second thing is backup. I'm going to go into backups first because having a backups in the C directory, usually if I can access it, and it looks like we can, this is probably not a good sign for the puppy domain. So I'm going to just download this, and this is a really nice thing about WinRM's, like using WinRM, or Evil-winrm rather, instead of just a normal bare bones shell, is this download feature. So if I didn't have this, I'd have to use PowerShell, or I'd have to use something else, but using download, super easy, super straightforward. You can download files, you can upload files. I really love Evil-winrm, one of my favorite tools when doing Windows stuff or Active Directory stuff. But with that being said, we've successfully downloaded it. I can come back to AD attacks, and we should have, yep, site backup. I'm gonna unzip that file, and we see a bunch of stuff inflate. We're gonna cd into the puppy directory, which is what it inflated into, ls, and the first thing that catches my eye is this authentication config. So we're going to cat that out, and we get a new set of credentials for Steph Cooper and Chef Steph 2025. So that is fantastic. We're going to nano creds.txt. I guess we're not in our directory. Nano creds.txt. Steph.cooper with the credential of Chef Steph 2025. And let's make sure those credentials actually work before we get baited too hard, because these two did not work. So let's go and do netexec SMB 10.10.1170 -user of Steph Cooper and the password of Chef Steph 2025. And we do successfully authenticate, so we can go over back to Bloodhound, go to Steph Cooper, and right click, add to owned, and see what is up with Steph Cooper. We see no outbound object controls. Next, we're gonna go to member, and Steph Cooper is also a WinRM member. So the box is going to, the thing with HackTheBox is it's going to revert, it's gonna reset. So eventually my adam.silver account will get disabled again, which means I'm gonna lose this WinRM session. So I'm just gonna exit out now. And even there, like this is because the password got reset and the account got disabled. So this error is solidifying what I just said. And instead of using Adam Silver's credentials, we're just going to use Steph Cooper's, because that is an account we know already works and we know we won't get kicked out of. So Steph Cooper, back to Evil-winrm. Oop, that's Steph Cooper's. I see my typo already. Come on, exit. There we go. Steph Cooper, Chef Steph 2025, and we get in. So the first thing I'm gonna look at is desktop, and if it loads, there isn't anything here, unfortunately. GCI-force sort of lists everything, and we get the desktop initialization file, but that's default, and nothing else. So at this point, you can kind of poke around and enumerate more, but I'm just going to run WinPEAS. I'm going to cd into C. I like to make a new directory for CTFs. At least I like to make a new directory called temp. And if you are actually doing a pen test engagement, I don't think that this is the right way to go about it. So don't take this advice if you're actually doing a pen test. This is bad OPSEC. But just for organization's sake, I like to make a temp folder for any of the enumeration I'm going to do on the box. I'm also going to copy over my WinPEAS. So copy over WinPEAS into my current directory, and then using that same functionality, I'm going to upload WinPEAS any.exe. So again, WinRM is awesome. You can upload files, you can download files, and overall just a fantastic tool, as hopefully you guys can see. But this is going to take a while to upload, so I will be right back as soon as WinPEAS uploads. Alrighty, WinPEAS has successfully uploaded to our Evil-winrm session. So I'm going to close out this other tab that I have. Whenever I run linPEAS or WinPEAS or any enumeration script that has a lot of output, I like to have the full screen taken up. So when I run it, I get to see from the start to the end of my monitor just all the information. So we can start to scroll through this honestly as it runs. Usually I'll cut away here, but WinPEAS runs pretty fast, so I'll let this run. The computer name's obviously DC. Our username is steph.cooper. Nothing interesting in the environment variables. System environment variables, nothing here. Lapse is not installed. LSA protection not enabled. And similarly to WinPEAS, or sorry, similar to LinPEAS, there is like a certain art, and you have to understand what to look for in WinPEAS. And I am not really good at looking at stuff for WinPEAS. I sort of still get caught in the weeds for looking at stuff in WinPEAS, but you're gonna have to like learn to read it more so than just looking at everything that's red. So just scrolling through here, PowerShell history is a good one. So if there was a PowerShell history here, sometimes there's credentials, sometimes there's commands that you shouldn't see. So this is a good one. Scrolling down, things about drives, Caribou relay, LSA information and settings, NTLM, keep scrolling. We have named pipes. So if we had, like we could maybe do a potato attack here if we had SE impersonate privileges with pipes. Keep scrolling down. We obviously our current user, token privileges. So if we had, again, SE impersonate privilege or SE token, I think there's one privilege that has to do with tokens. This is where you'd find that. Local users, we obviously have our local administrator and then all of the users. Auto log on credentials, which is just the normal default, so nothing here. Keep scrolling, there's a ton of information here. Again, just scrolling past this stuff, saving some time. Unquoted service paths and path injection. It's like WinPEAS loves this, but none of it's actually going to come into fruition and be an actual vulnerability. So if you're actually on an engagement, then of course you're going to look through all of this, but for the sake of time and for the sake of the CTF, we're going to keep scrolling. Internal processes and services is a good one to check out, but we're not going to here. Keep scrolling until finally we get to something that's really interesting. And this box was my introduction to the data protection API, or DPAPI, or DPAPI, Poppy. I'll say DPAPI API. I don't know, but checking for DPAPI master keys, and we see that WinPEAS actually finds a master key which correlates to RSID. So obviously it's in our user folder, it's gonna be RSID, and it finds this master key. And it also finds credential files. So it finds some local credential files here under this DFB file, but it also finds some enterprise credentials. And I like to think of this, and I don't know if this is the proper way of thinking about it, but I like to think of local credential data versus enterprise credential data similar to like a local admin versus a domain admin. They're a little different. They're both very valuable, but I want to be the domain admin. I want to see the enterprise credential data and see what that's all about. So if we have the master key, and if we have this user's password, so we have Steph Cooper's password, we have the master key, we have our password, and we have a credential blob that has enterprise data, we have everything we need to unlock this DPAPI credential file. So let's go here and let's download all this stuff. So we see obviously this master key correlates here, and this credential blob correlates to this master key. So let's copy this file path, cd into that file. And we are going to do if we do just a dir, a dir, nothing shows up. And that's because this file is hidden. So gci-force is going to show all the files, and we see it's hidden. So to unhide this file, and actually you can try to download this and it's not going to work. So to unhide this file, I believe the syntax is we're going to do attribute -a.h.s and then -s&d. I believe unhides the file. We do a quick ls again, and there we go. It unhides the file. It essentially just strips away all of these attributes and makes it easier to see for processes and for us. And now we can properly download that master key file. Okay, fantastic. Now we're going to scroll up and see where that other one was, where our credential file was, which is in app data roaming Microsoft credentials right here. CD into here. If we do a dir again, we're not going to be able to see it. ls, we can't see it. So we have to do that same attribute command -s just a -s -h -s -d. So a lot of s's and d's and whatever. We're going to download this file. So this is going to be the credential blob file. So now we have, and I can probably go back to 80 attacks here. Doing ls, we have our master key file, we have our credential file, and we also have our SID, which is right here. So the tool we can use to actually uncover these is impacket-dpapi tool. And it's similar to all the impacket tools. There's a ton of stuff we can do here, but to start, we're going to do the master key. So we need to actually decrypt this master key to get into the credential file. And it's sort of like the way I interpret it and I think about it in my head is it's like a lock on like the outside of a big vault. Like it's like a number credential lock, and the master key is for that. I guess you could think about it like a password manager too. Now that I think about it and I'm starting to say it out loud, it's essentially just your master password, your master key. Like if you use like a pass key to log into your password manager, I guess it's a similar thing. But we have to decrypt that key to get into the credential file. And we have to decrypt that key to actually read the credential blob here. So we're going to do that with impacket-dpapi tool. DPAPI master key, and we're going to provide the -file, which is this 556 file. And we're going to provide the SID of, go back here to Evil-winrm. So this is going to be the user SID, which is that. And we're also going to provide the password. And this password is going to be just the same one we used to log in with. And instead of scrolling up like a idiot, I'm going to add a new tab and cat cred.text and copy chef steph 2025. Click enter, cross our fingers, and we successfully decrypt the key. Awesome. Now, what can we do with this? Well, if we go back to impacket-dpapi and see all the options, we can do credentials. And now that we have the key, we can do the credentials. So dpapi credential, and we need two things. We need the file and we need the key. So our credential file is going to be this one, C8. And our key is going to be the one we just decrypted, which is not that, but this. So we paste that in, we have our credential file, we have our decrypted master key, we click enter, and there we go. We are able to successfully get into this credential blob and read that the username of steph.cooper_admin, so the admin account, and we can confirm this here. So Steph Cooper admin. Obviously, it's got that diamond, high priority target. Why is that? Because he's a part of the administrators, the domain administrators at puppy.htb. So now we have his credentials. And what can we do with that? Obviously, we can dump secrets. We can, for simplicity's sake for the video, we are going to just log in as that user. So fifth chip on its way 2025. I love how all these passwords are 2025 themed. If you're watching this in 2026, try to guess when this box was made. So we log in as Steph Cooper, his admin account, we CD into the desktop, and we find that there's no administrator flag, and that's probably because we need to actually CD into the administrator, CD desktop, and there we go. So to get the root.txt flag, you're going to go into the C users administrator instead of Steph Cooper admin account. But that is going to wrap it up for Puppy. And as I said, this box is quite the doozy. There's a lot of stuff going on. So if you followed and you watched all the way to the end, congratulations. I'm sure that you did learn something new because I know that I did. Even like this attribute command up here or wherever it was, this attribute command is very nice for in conjunction with Evil-winrm, being able to download hidden files and unhide them. This attribute command was huge for me. And when I first did this box, of course, all of the DPAPI stuff was new to me. So understanding what a master key was, what a credential blob file was, how this tool worked, all this stuff, very cool, very, very cool indeed. But that's going to be it for Puppy from HackTheBox. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day. Happy hacking.